can start stitching any part of the teddy bear together, but we're going to be starting with the body. First of all, we need to stitch the darts at the base of the body and the neck of the body on the left and the right hand side. Once you've stitched those, obviously you then need to put the two body shapes together, and you would take a pin and match up your darts at the neck and pin them securely, and then match the darts at the base of the body, and then pin the body shape all the way around except for the opening at the center back, which is where you eventually have to fill the bear. The next step, once you've pinned it, is then to stitch all the way around. We use about a 4 to 5 millimeter seam allowance, and again leaving the back open. The next step would then be to brush your seams out. We want to lift the pile that is stuck in the seam, and you can use a little finger brush for that, or a heavyweight needle or a pin, and very carefully flick out all the pile that is caught in that seam, and this is eventually what your shape will look like. To illustrate each step of stitching, I've once again prepared several heads. Here we have the two side heads pinned to the gusset. Once you have stitched those, the next step would be to stitch them together. As you can see here, I've now stitched from the snout all the way to the base of the head at the back. You then fold your gusset down so both heads lie flat on top of each other, and then pin the two layers together at the snout all the way down to the neck underneath the chin. This is then going to get stitched, and you will leave the base open here because that is where you will put your neck joint in. The next step will then be like this, where everything has been pre-stitched, and you will see that the gusset is actually folded down at that point. And finally, you're going to brush out all your seams with a brush to get that effect. The paw pad has to be attached to the inner arm before the outer arm and inner arm can be stitched together. As you can see, the paw pad has been matched to the inner arm and stitched. You then need to pin your outer arm right sides together to the inner arm, as I have done here. And again, very carefully pin, tucking the pile inside. And your next step would be to stitch. When you come to stitching, ensure that you push the paw pad seam upwards towards the top of the arm, so that your pile lies down when you turn it right side round. Here the paw has been stitched to the inner arm and to the outer arm, and the pile has been brushed out. Now we're going to start stitching the leg, which has an inserted foot pad at the base. This leg has been folded in half and pinned from the top opening down to the foot pad area. It then gets stitched all the way down, and you need to ensure that you do a double back stitch at the base so that stitching doesn't come undone when you insert the foot pad. You then take your little foot pad and find the midpoint in the front and the back, and you do that merely by folding the foot pad in half and finding the midpoint at the top and the bottom and marking it with a pin or a small pencil line. You then have to pin your foot pad onto the base of your leg. Again, I've pinned it in 4 equidistant positions. That then has to be tacked. So you take a cream or a white or a contrasting thread, and very carefully, using a whip stitch, you're going to whip stitch the 2 raw edges together to keep the foot pad in place. Once you've done your whip stitching, we're then going to stitch the foot pad, and that is done by either hand or machining it, and you will start from the top part and secure it all the way around, as I have done here. Once you have done that, you're then going to remove your tacking and again brush all the fur pile out that was caught in the seams. and that's how your leg would look, with an opening at the top for jointing. The next step now is to secure the leg. This leg has been pinned. You can see here is the joint mark for connecting to the body. Now we're going to attach the foot pad to the base of the leg, and you need to mark the center fold down the back of the leg because your foot pad needs to match up with that. Take your foot pad and with one of the pins position it on top of your center front seam of the leg and pin it securely. Then you're going to go to the back of the leg and match those two pins up so that they match. This will ensure that you get even distribution of your foot pad in the opening. We're then going to stretch the sides of the leg and the foot pad, and again we're going to pin that securely, and then the other side as well, so that your foot pad lies nice and flat in that opening, like that. The next step is to tuck the pile in between the ultra suede or foot pad fabric and your leg from mohair. And once you've done that, you're going to take a needle and a contrasting thread, and you're going to whip stitch the raw edges together as I have done here. This will keep your foot pad in place until you machine it together. Once you have completed all the whip stitching, the next step will now be your hand or machine stitching. Once you have machine stitched or hand stitched the foot pad in place, this is what it will look like. Your next step would then be to remove all your whip stitching, and with the scissors you can very carefully slide the scissors between the two layers and lift that stitching out. Once you have removed all the whip stitching, you then have to fold back the ultra suede from the leg and brush all the fur that's caught in between the seam out with a fingertip brush. The next step is to stitch the ear pieces together. I've already pinned the one set together. Here I've stitched it. It's a half moon shape, the ear, and remember the base needs to be kept open. An important tip for stitching ears is to start at the lower edge and stitch in a few stitches towards the corner, go over the top section and again stitch in a short distance, so that when you turn your ear shape inside out, your corners are already pre-stitched. Here is a close-up shot of where the stitching begins and ends.